The loss of a loved one can leave you feeling depressed, angry, alone, lost. But you don't have to face this journey on your own. Open to Hope is a free community for anyone who has experienced loss. Find support. Find help. Find hope. Give grief a voice at opentohope.com.
Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
This show is brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation in partnership with the Compassionate Friends. Heidi, we've got a show that I know is important to you because we're going to be talking about pregnancy loss, stillbirth, that kind of thing. And I know you've had some miscarriages, so you have some definite thoughts on this.
Yep. This show is near and dear to my heart. I have had 2 miscarriages and a lot of infertility. And, you know, these kinds of losses are so minimized and unacknowledged. So I love the organizations we're having here today because they really help people and give them support.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the organizations is called First Candle, and we're going to be talking to Chris Blake. He's the executive director of First Candle, and we're going to be talking to Brooke Smith. She used the services at First Candle, and Brooke's going to talk about that and what it's gone on to lead her to do to start her own organization. So we'll be talking about that.
Can I just say something about Brooke? Brooke had a stillbirth, and she had a daughter who is still her daughter.
Yes.
And her name is Kennedy Grace Smith. So I just wanted to kind of honor her. And like you said, Chris is the CEO actually of First Candle, and Brooke used their support services.
Right. Well, Chris, I'm really happy to hear about First Candle because I really didn't know a whole lot about it. You know, I have a nursing background, so I knew a lot about the crib deaths and all that, and how it was very dramatic. What, in the 60s, people were wondering, I mean, some people even were accused of killing their children and things like that. So the government got involved, and First Candle's kind of come out of that, correct?
Right, exactly. Back in the 60s, when First Candle, back then it was called the SIDS Alliance. It was sort of an alliance of many different kinds of charities involved with folks who had lost their babies. But through that, we began to the organization began to grow into being much more about public awareness, educational programs, things like that. And so although the loss of a child and the grief support systems were always our core, we were also able to reach out into a lot of different areas. Most significantly, we worked with NIH, the National Institute of Health, back in the late 90s to promote the Back to Sleep campaign, which was instrumental in lowering SIDS rates 50% around the country.
That's amazing. That's a significant amount.
Well, it goes back to the point that, you know, so often we you know, have families that deal with these tragedies, but so little is spoken about it.
Right.
Nobody wants to talk about it.
True.
Nobody wants to, because nobody knows how. So hopefully if we can begin talking about infant safety, we're also able to open the door to begin talking about parents who have lost babies and what that means to them.
Great. Well, Brooke, could you talk a little bit about how you got involved with First Candle? What happened?
Yes. Well, after I lost Kennedy, I searched the internet for help. And
now you lost Kennedy. Tell us about how that happened.
Oh, unfortunately, I had experienced decrease of fetal movement a few times, and I kept going to the hospital, letting them know what was going on. They did some testing and some sonograms, but they felt like since her heart rate wasn't showing any distress that she was okay, but I knew something was wrong. And I kept going back. I went about 3 times. And unfortunately, on the 3rd time, she had no heartbeat. And I had never heard about stillbirth. They don't talk about stillbirth. I didn't even know I still had to deliver her, which is a trauma that people don't even realize that is associated with this. So in that, you know, I felt lost. I was angry. I was hurt. And
how many months along were you? I mean, how far
I was full term. I was past my due date.
Wow,
my goodness.
Past my due date.
So you probably had no idea that this could even happen.
No.
I mean, that's so traumatic.
There's so many different layers to this. You know, there's people that experience complications along your pregnancy, and then there's people like me who experience a healthy pregnancy, and you just don't know. So that's why organizations like this, it's just wonderful because the awareness is something that we all need to know about. People think it can't happen to them, but it could happen to anybody.
So you reached out to First Candle?
Yes.
How did you find them?
I found them through an internet search.
Okay.
You know, one of my many nights up where I couldn't sleep, I searched online, and they had a wonderful service where they offer 24-hour grief support. So I utilized that many times.
Well, and I think that's so key because I always say, you know, oftentimes we're grieving at 2, 3, 4 in the morning when our therapists and our friends and our family are asleep.
Yes.
And we're looking out the window saying, am I the only person out there that's had a loss? Is there anybody else out there right now? And to be able to, you know,
And they
get
call
that
back.
connection, that's
Yes.
amazing.
4 o'clock in the morning.
I love it.
Oh my
whenever I
goodness.
needed it, yes.
Now, how many support people do you have around the United States
We
at
have
First
quite
Candle?
a few volunteers around the country. That's actually one of the things that I was hoping to talk about on the program because one of the things that we're hoping to do is to be able to expand our programs into communities around the country. It's great to have a national hotline. It's used all the time, and dozens of people call us up throughout the course of a week. But what we really want to do is partner with other organizations and even to activate some volunteers around the country who'd be willing to go through a training. I talked a little bit about National Institute of Health, and they've funded a program for us to actually train peer counselors.
Yes.
And so that's one of the things that we're excited about doing, and one of the reasons why I wanted to be on the show today, because, you know, when I lost my mom, everybody in my family knew, all my friends, they gave me time off of work. It was tragic, but I felt like the whole community was there. But when my wife lost our baby to a miscarriage, nobody even knew.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and I was working at First Candle, and it was like suddenly I had to learn firsthand what Brooke is talking about, and how important it is to have somebody there.
Yeah, that's pretty ironic that you were working at this organization that, you know, specializes in helping people with miscarriage, and then you had a personal experience with it.
Absolutely, it was eye-opening, and then after that we had a baby, Olivia, who couldn't be here today, but she's our rainbow baby in a way because, you know, all the things that I'm telling people about, you know, baby safety and things like that. All of a sudden I have to do them myself.
And tell our audience and tell everybody what rainbow baby means, because I know you said it before the show and now you're saying it.
Yes. Well, a rainbow baby is a baby that you have after a loss.
Okay.
So they consider the loss a storm. You go through this horrible storm, and they say there's a rainbow of hope.
I love that. Well, tell us about the gala you're going to have. Tell us when it is, where it is.
So we have a gala every year here in New York City, and we bring researchers in, we bring companies in who really promote baby safety and the products that they make. We have family parents that come in, and it's really a great time for sort of all the different parts of our organization to come together. It's more of a remembrance, but also a celebration. Remembering where we came from, but, you know, also looking forward to where we're going. And it's at the New York Palace this year, November 5th, and all the information is on our website, so you can find that out.
Yeah, give us your website.
It's firstcandle.org.
Okay.
So it's pretty easy, and that's where all the information is. And just want to encourage everyone that can come out. It's a great event.
Yeah. And Brooke, you do something yourself in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Library or something?
Yes. Well, thanks to First Candle and the support that they've given me. Even when we first lost Kennedy, we had the opportunity to sit down with Chris, and we told him we wanted to do something, and he encouraged us and told us, he said, you know, just take some time, be patient with yourself, and, you know, it'll unfold. Whatever it is that you need to do, that your purpose to do, it will unfold. And that's exactly what happened. We were able to start our own organization called Not My Baby, and we focused on peer support groups also. So every, the last Monday of every month, we meet at the Brooklyn Public Library, and we sit down and we laugh, we talk, we cry, we just do whatever we need to do to start recovery and healing.
Now you have brochures and things too on First Candle, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Everything from, a lot of the work that we do, obviously we're talking about grief support today, and so a lot of things for parents and grandparents and siblings who have lost babies or have suffered through a stillbirth or a miscarriage. But then also on the other side, we have programs for, we call it pregnant and empowered. For example, monitoring, you know, kicks count is what they call it. And it's monitoring fetal movement.
Kicks count.
Yes. We do a lot of work, we were talking before the show, in daycares to make, and in hospitals, just to make sure that that message is getting to all parents, not just the ones unfortunately who've gone through loss.
What are some of the major things that parents should know?
Well, I think for pregnant moms, it's important to, you know, monitoring the fetal movement that we were talking about is very important. And the other thing is, going back to the empowered part of pregnant and empowered, is a lot of times moms don't think that doctor always knows best, or they're not sure what to say, or not sure, you know. One of the things when that we talk about is, just as a perfect example, of late-term ultrasounds. When we went to the doctor said, "Oh no, the insurance doesn't cover that."
Oh, wow.
Right? But now in Australia they do that, and their stillbirth rates are much lower. So I wanted it.
Wow.
So my wife and I went in there, and we were very adamant. You know, we don't care what it takes. This is something we want.
Well, and I know another thing has been changed. I was 2.5 weeks late with my son, and it was a very, very traumatic delivery. And it could have even gone longer. I was induced. But now they won't let people go that far over their due date. So that's changed. I mean, this was in '98 that he was born.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things. And so one of the things that we're hoping to do is to empower moms and dads and grandparents.
Yeah.
You know, they're the only voice their baby has. If they think something's wrong, they need to raise a ruckus.
Right. I like that. So be your own advocate, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And having people watch this and listen and get a hold of people and be their advocate and help them.
Yeah.
Brooke, what thought do you have if you wanted to say one thing to somebody who's had a stillbirth?
You're not alone. You're not alone. Be gentle with yourself. Take time. Find the support that you need to find the road that's best for you for recovery. You know, we deal with a lot of people who are insensitive because the value on unborn lives, it should be priceless.
Right.
But, you know, the lack of resources and stuff shows that, you know, that they don't really take it as serious. And, you know, just be strong.
Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show today and for all the things you're doing at First Candle and for what you're doing to help people. And thanks again.
Thanks
for
for
being
having us.
You.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, Heidi, we wanted now to talk about a program that's in New York City, right?
Yes, we are going to talk with Dr. Christiane Manzella, and she is a friend of mine and someone that I know. She is, let's see, she's the executive director. I've got to double check what she is. She's the clinical director at Saline Institute. She's a psychologist. She teaches grief and loss and other classes at NYU. And she's on the board of ADEC, the Association of Death Educators and Counselors, which is where I first met her.
And we see her there.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I'm excited about her program because you were telling me about it and the beautiful Roland we've got. And you visited them, right?
It is an incredibly gorgeous place on the Upper East Side. I didn't know about it. She brought me and a whole bunch of people together that specialize in grief and loss, and gave us a tour. And it's healing when you just walk in because it is so gorgeous and so relaxing, and it's an amazing place.
Fantastic. Well, let's look at a roll in, and then let's interview her.
Okay.
We started Seleni in order to destigmatize mental health. Getting pregnant, having a baby, not having a baby, stillbirth, miscarriage, infertility, they're crisis points in women's lives.
It's natural and wonderful, and I assumed it would be an easy road. I assumed it would be cut and dry, and it just wasn't.
The crisis point then becomes when the reality is different from the expectation.
10 to 20% of women experience postpartum depression, which when you actually go through the numbers translates to approximately 900,000 patients a year.
Their children are more likely to have learning disabilities by the time they're in school, to suffer from depression later on in life, and they're more prone to violence.
There is a stigma attached to it, and it's not something that you feel comfortable reaching out to friends and family about.
Medical care has focused on treating various organic disorders, and there hasn't always been a recognition that mental health is another part, just as important.
But it's terrible to ask somebody how they're feeling and then not have anywhere to send them. You identify a problem and then you can't fix it, that's almost worse than pretending the problem isn't there.
I felt desperate and alone, I would say, really alone.
Our ethos is really, when a mother's supported, she's better able to support her family, and she's better able to care for her children and the people around her. Creating a beautiful environment, a place where people want to come to, where people want to open up. Those first couple of barriers are dealt with, and then the real work can happen.
Thank you very much for having me here today.
Yes, so I know I've been to Seleni, but tell our audience a little bit about it.
So Seleni is a wonderful organization that was founded by George and Nitya Logotheros, really to help women and their well-being. And we focus on reproductive and maternal mental health. And part of that process is dealing with loss, because part of the reproductive story involves not only birth but loss. 20% of all pregnancies end in miscarriage. 1 in 160 births end in stillbirth.
Oh my goodness!
It's a shocking number. People, and we know these numbers. And of course, one of the complications that can occur is after a woman has had either a miscarriage or a stillbirth, there's a terrible disenfranchisement that happens. What happened? Oh, honey, go on, have another baby.
Oh, yes.
You're young, you can do that again. But women need the time to physically heal, mentally heal, emotionally heal. And the way that we want in our society people to move on, you know, we're a death-denying society.
Especially when you couldn't even maybe even see that we're pregnant or whatever.
Right. It's a secret. It's become many women experience it as a shameful secret that needs to be hidden. And the fact that there might be any suffering going on is shameful. And then in a subsequent pregnancy, there can be huge complications. A woman who becomes pregnant again after a stillbirth or a miscarriage is at risk for perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. Or a woman who is experiencing trouble conceiving and starts infertility treatment. And that's
those are dramatic. They
huge.
can be really traumatic.
Yeah, traumatic, and also a medicalization of something that is a normal process.
It's interesting that you're saying so much of this resonates with me personally, as well as professionally, and I'm like, wow, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember getting...
Wow, yes, in an awful way.
In an awful way, yes.
Yes.
When getting, you know, medical, I want to say medical treatments, but going for infertility initially, and feeling like I had a terminal illness.
Yeah.
Because you are poked and prodded and blood is drawn and all these things are happening and your expectations are very high and you get very disappointed. And then, you know, you finally get pregnant, and I did, and I miscarried. And it was interesting because when you talk about how people don't acknowledge it, I remember a lot of people starting sentences with the words "at least." At least you're young, at least you can get pregnant, at least you can have another baby, at least you already have a child. And it was just interesting because...
What about this child?
Right,
what about this baby?
Yeah.
I wanted this baby.
Yes, Christiane, there's no acknowledgement or validation that I'm grieving a loss.
Yeah.
And I'm not only grieving the loss of my baby and my pregnancy, which I felt there was a connection, but I'm grieving the loss of the future that I'm not going to have. So yeah, I like the points you're bringing up.
Yeah.
And I remember you talking a little bit about guilt. You told me that you feel like, did I drink too much Coke or coffee, or, you know, there's
Did I have one little glass of wine?
Yeah.
Or did I take that aspirin? Was I pregnant? Did I look the wrong way when I crossed the street? I mean,
because I wanted to believe with my first miscarriage that if I did everything right, it would never happen again on the second one. It did happen again, but you know, this idea that I could control it, and then the idea that my body let me down and maybe I was to blame.
Well, I'm really happy to be shining a light, really shining a light on this, because women go through this alone, and this whole shameful experience of, gosh, I feel bad, but I shouldn't, and the idea that that guilt and blame and can also engender terrible anxiety. And anxiety can cause such suffering. You know, anxiety is a normal part of life, a learning curve. But on the other side of it, anxiety can be debilitating. And along with guilt, it's secret and hidden. So what happens then in a woman's life? She suffers.
Now, tell me, I want to hear about your program, but also, what if I'm watching this and I'm from Des Moines, Iowa or something? What do you suggest that I do?
Well, it's interesting because there are internet resources that exist but to share and talk with those you trust in your life and to say, look, something real happened, this baby existed, this baby lived, this baby died. I had a relationship with this baby for the length of time that I had this baby was alive, and I can still love that baby. And sometimes women want to let go or relinquish, but sometimes women definitely want to remember and honor and name the baby who was who lived and then died. So I think that the first thing I would say is to talk to people and know that what you experienced is real, and it's worth. It's a funny way of putting it, but it's a grieve. It's a worthwhile to grieve because it's something that you valued.
I like what you're saying, and I like the idea of actually disclosing and talking to people, because it wasn't
Trusted
until
people.
Yes, it wasn't until I actually would talk to people that people would say, "Oh my gosh, I had the same experience, but I've never told anybody."
Right.
That's when I learned that other people have been through miscarriage and stillbirth, is by disclosing my own loss.
Yeah.
And we were talking on the earlier segment about the rainbow baby, but Heidi, you had your own rainbow baby.
I was thinking of this. You know, a lot of people go on to have biological children, but some of us can't. And that isn't the scenario. But, you know, I'm just here to say that if you really, really want a child, there's many, many ways our families come to us.
Yeah.
And my son is my biological son, and my daughter was adopted from China in 2006. And she is a daughter born from my heart, I always say.
Oh, that's
So
beautiful.
there are so many scenarios and so many ways we can create families if that's what we want to do.
And also there are relatives and cousins and other people that you can bring in too. But tell me, what would you do with me if I came to you, to your organization?
Well, gosh, I just wanted to, I want to answer your question in just a minute, but I just wanted to say that there are so many paths to build a family, and to recognize and say that it's very touching to recognize you can, you know, biologically, adoption, cousins.
And the idea that having children or adopting children or, you know, et cetera, after we've had a loss doesn't make our loss replaced.
It's a subsequent child.
Right, exactly.
I know that you used the term rainbow child a moment ago. I usually just say subsequent child because that way, whatever the person wants to call her or his child, that's up to her or him. But you know, the mother and the partner. So I just say subsequent child. So let me come back around and answer your question.
Yeah, that's fine.
So it's the what would I do if you had a pregnancy loss?
And I came to your organization.
I would ask you to. Well, we have. If you came to me in our clinic in New York, I would probably sit with you at Seleni in our beautiful offices where you saw, and I would ask you to tell me what was your loss, what happened.
So tell my story.
Tell your story, and where are you now, and how can we move forward? What are the next right steps? And to become a witness and a compassionate person to walk with you through your grief and your grief journey. So really coming to where you are now, and also what grief needs to, what grieving still needs to happen, and to acknowledge that, and to allow you to, and give you permission maybe even, validate, yes, you can be happy, you can be sad, it's okay to be okay, it's okay not to be okay.
I like that.
Yeah. Because sometimes you're not okay, and everybody's saying, "Oh, get over it, get over it." Well, this is where I am, and so that's part of what I might do if you came to me.
Lovely, walking the.
And tell me, I mean, your organization. One of the things that struck me is the minute I walked in, it was gorgeous, and it was healing just by looking at it. And is that kind of the reason that the environment is so beautiful is the idea that we walk in and we automatically feel better.
Yes, it's connected in some way to our name.
Okay.
And the founder, George and Nitzia Logotheros, Mrs. Logotheros, designed the clinic with that in mind.
Oh, wow.
Seleni comes from there are two words really. There's Saline, which means moon, and then Eleni, who is very courageous. She was in the Greek wars, and she sacrificed herself for her children, and represents the courage it takes to heal. And then Saline, which is connected to the moon, represents the serenity and the calm that we hope to, so that we have a holding place for people to work and to be walk through their journey in whatever way needs to happen. So there's a safe holding that happens.
I love that.
Heidi, I'm thinking, wouldn't it have been fabulous if you'd known about this?
Oh, it would have been incredible.
Yeah. Hearing about it now, how is there? Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share about this?
I could have definitely, would have been a place that I would have loved and felt, like you said, supported, heard, and been able to tell my story, because I didn't have really a place to do it, because nobody knew this child, this pregnancy loss. Nobody knew the baby. No one, so I didn't get a lot of support.
And it's part of your story now.
Right.
It's something that doesn't just go away. It's in the narrative of your life now.
Right.
This changes you, and for some couples it unhinges them. For a mother who has a loss, it can be the most devastating experience and the most puzzling, because gee, how come I'm suffering and struggling so, and everybody else around me? It's like this nightmarish quality, and so we can really help women and their partners move through this nightmarish quality to get a life again that has good quality.
I love that.
Well, I do too. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today and for all the work you're doing. It's just wonderful, isn't it?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christiane. You are changing so many lives throughout the world.
Thank you very much.
Now tell us again how we get in touch with the organization.
So we are on internet, seleni.org. From there you would get all of the information you would need, how to contact us directly.
Great. Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching this show today. And Heidi and I always want to remind you to take care of yourself. And if you lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own. And God